Alright, Chapter 4, Rules of the Train Operation. Rule 4.1, Trains operating with a grade. Great care must be exercised for the engineer and conductor for the handling of the trains that are carved on the grade, but proceed with it. They must know the full protection against uncontrolled movement is provided with the setting of the sufficient handbrakes on cars until the air brake system is fully charged and tested until required adjustments are made in retainers and set if required. Starting from the summit of the grade, a train must not be allowed to start from the summit of a grade following the stop of the descending of the grade until the train brake system is sufficiently charged at a safe level. Caution: when approaching a descent grade of 1.8% or greater, the speed must be at least 5 miles an hour below the maximum authorized speed as the train crests the summit of the grade. Maximum brake pipe reduction. Tables show the maximum brake pipe reduction that must not be exceeded to the balance of the grade. Or your maximum brake pipe reduction. Maximum brake pipe reduction 13 psi. Maximum speed allowed over above fit 25%, 25 miles per hour. Maximum brake pipe reduction 18 psi. Maximum speed allowed 25 miles an hour or less. If the train speed cannot be controlled with the 18 psi brake with the brake pipe reduction, the train must be stopped and secured by setting the handbrake. The train must not proceed until the complete inspection of the train has been performed. To determine the cause, the supervisor must be notified before proceeding. Restoring the air pressure, if necessary, to restore the air pressure to the safety level of the performed. The proceeding of the independent brake may not be to hold the train. Sufficient hand brakes must be set before the air brakes and released before the system is recharged. After the brake pipe pressure is properly charged at safe level, the sufficient brake pipe reduction must be made to hold the train while the handbrakes are being released. Use retainers. When retainer valves are used, the following will govern. The cars will actually weigh 50 tons or less and must have the retainer valve set for the low pressure position if equipped or slow direct position if not equipped. The car with actual weight over 50 tons must have a retainer valve set for high pressure position. The short cycle method of braking may not be used. The method consists of the make of the frequent the automatic brake application should hold for the application of the brake pipe pressure gradually reducing cannot be restored to the slower train speed. The brake pipe reduction reaches 18 psi. The train must be stopped and the air brake system recharged. The train which experienced the dynamic brake failure of the trains cannot be controlled, but they allow the speed of the use of the full dynamic brake as in 18 psi brake pipe reduction. 1 must stop. 2 must have sufficient hand brakes applied to prevent the movement of the train. Must not proceed. Any additional dynamic braking is obtained that the tonnage is reduced. The retainer valves on all cars are placed in the operative position. The train must not proceed. The instructed by the supervisor. Note: the train using retainers must not exceed 15 miles an hour. Alright, three position valve. CS figure 4 of 1. The EX position. EX is the direct exhaust position with the retainer of the EX position. Flow of the brake, the cylinder pressure exhaust of the atmosphere unrestricted. The retainer is now being used with the retainer valve handle must be in the EX position or the direct exhaust position pointing downward parallel to the pipe. The HP is the high pressure position, which is the retainer of the high pressure position with the flow of the brake cylinder pressure exhaust through the atmosphere control, where there's a high pressure position with the handle points downward at a 45-degree angle. Alright, SD is your slow direct exhaust position. The retainer of the slow direct exhaust position flow of the brake cylinder pressure exhaust of the atmosphere completely vented when the slow direct exhaust position the handle points upward to 45-degree angle. Alright, your three positioning retaining valve. The exhaust position allows you to direct the exhaust hose cylinder pressure to the atmosphere. This is the normal position of the retaining valve, so it's vertical. Your high pressure is retains 20 pounds PSI cylinder brake pressure allows you to brake system recharge for the necessary retainers using the position on unload empties. And also your slow direction position. Restricts the exhaust brake cylinder pressure without the control rate blowdown time about 86 seconds. Your direct exhaust, same as the three-position retainer system. High pressure exhaust, same as the three-position retainer system. Your low pressure position with the retainer low position flow brake cylinder exhaust with the atmosphere is controlled. And your slow direction pressure, same as the three-position retainer system. Your four-position retainer system. The exhaust position always direct exhaust brake cylinder pressure of the atmosphere. This is normal position for the retaining valve. High pressure position retaining 20% of the brake allows you to air brake the recharge when necessary to use the retainer use the position on unloaded cars. 3 low pressure position and retains 10 psi brake cylinder pressure allows you to brake the system recharge when necessary to reuse the retainers use the position empty cars. In your slow direction position restricts the exhaust of the brake cylinder pressure to allow control rate blowdown time in about 86 seconds. Alright, rule 4.2, snow and ice consideration. Weather conditions are such that the depth of the snow near and above the top of the rail, such that the icing conditions may exist. The train and engine crews must be alert of the other possibilities of snow and ice building up on the brake shoes. Where conditions favorable, running an application of the train brakes are made to determine the proper brake power is available. Approaching descending grades, precaution must also be taken to ensure that the brake shoes are free of ice and snow. Rule 4.3, penalty brake application. The bidding on the penalty brake application, the warning whistle will sound in approximately 4 to 6 seconds to alert the engineer of a pending brake application to prevent the pending brake penalty of brake application occurrence with the engineer with the most depressed the alternated button to actuate the change of the throttle position, blow the whistle, ring with the bell, or either with the brake valve handles. Or your penalty brake application occurrence. When the penalty brake application occurs, the full service automatic brake valve will occur with the pressure control switch will open to recover the penalty brake application. Perform the following steps. Place the automatic brake valve handle in the following position. Leave it there until the train stops. Suppression down position 26C or 38 CDW. Lap position 24RL. 24RL. Press the throttle in idle position and place dynamic brake level in off position. After the train is stopped, the pressure control switch is reset. The automatic brake valve handle may be placed in the release position when it is safe to do so. Rule 4.4, brake pipe pressure reduction from unknown surface. The brake apply on the train. The train brakes are applied with the surface rate with the unknown surface. So the engineer must stop the train. Leave the automatic brake valve handle in the release position. Keep the locomotive brakes released. Reduce the throttle gradually as the train slows down. Stay on the rails if necessary. As the train comes to a stop, fully apply the independent brake valve. Brakes do not apply on the train. Whenever the brake pipe reduction of 5 psi must not more is observed on the head of the telemetry device due to the unknown cause, the brakes do not apply. The engineer must ascertain the brake pipe continuing with the brake of the pipe pressure reduction. Observe the reduction of the pressure on the head of the end of the telemetry device. The head end of the telemetry device does not indicate the brake pipe pressure reduction. The train must be stopped and an inspection must be made to determine the train is intact and that the brakes apply and release are on the rear car. Alright, rules 4.5, maximum dynamic brake axles. Maximum operating dynamic brake for any locomotives consisting of 2 axles. When the coupling or number of the axles operating with dynamic brake locomotives unit identified with having the high capacity dynamic brake electronic hitch, or EFH. Electronic transfer hitch must be considered as having the following equivalents: 4 axles equals 6. 4 axle unit equals 6 axles. 6 axle unit equals 8 axles. Use the dynamic brake of the control train. Consider the good train handling the technique of the dynamic brake must be with the primary means of reducing the control speed movement at the speed above 18 miles an hour. Low speed yard and transfer movement at never lever grade. The example of the movements that do not require the use of the dynamic brakes. Rule 4.7, the dynamic brake cutoff switch and control circuit breaker. The locomotive units are equipped with the dynamic brake control circuit on the control console. The control unit with the breaker must be turned on the dynamic brakes to operate properly. Position of the braking and the trailing units have no effect on the dynamic brake. If necessary to cut out the dynamic brakes, it must be known that all the wheels and units continue to rotate freely, engage and freely, and the engine is tagged, and the effective tag is placed on the lead locomotive. Locomotive units with a traction motor cut out will not have operative dynamic brake. If the dynamic brake fails, immediate action must be taken. Control the speed and prevent harsh slack action. Stop the rain if required. Rule 4.8. Using isolation switch during dynamic braking. Locomotive must not be isolated with the dynamic brake in operation. Isolation when they use the dynamic brake cut the electrical loads removed suddenly, with this will result in serious damage to electrical equipment. Rule 4.9, shoving car. During the backup of the shoving movement with the car, do not use the more than power than needed to start the body movement smoothly. Always use the lowest possible throttle position when shoving sharp curve the turnouts across bridges during backup and shoving movements following maximum throttle positions. Number of powered axles, 12 or less. Maximum throttle position, 8. 14 powered axles, 6 position throttle, 6. 16 powered axles, 5 position. 18 powered axle, 4 position. 20 minimum maximum axles, minimum maximum throttle position, 3. When backing up the movement, it is necessary the locomotive to couple the rear and transfer the control of the air brakes to the rear locomotive before starting the movement. Rule 4.10, crew change of the procedure. When the crew is changed with the inbound and outbound crew members, it can be confirmed with the condition of the locomotive. of the following: locomotive unit train, air brakes, telemetry system when required, equipment discrepancy, dynamic braking, cutout switch is properly positioned to provide maximum allowable dynamic brake not to exceed 24 operative axles. Previously blocked signal indication when applicable, and status of the daily inspection of the locomotive units. The engineer and conductor must leave with a written notification that unable to confer with the outbound crews. The outbound conductor and the engineer must review the information discussed. Any discrepancies, inbound engineer must notify the outbound engineer when the train has experienced undesired emergency brake application. 411. Initiating train movement. At this point, when the train is originally made, but the rear is considered the train as soon as practicable before entering the track is controlled with the train dispatcher yard master. A crew member must communicate with the following information with the train dispatcher and yard master: load empty tons in total train length, including the locomotive, total locomotive units, maximal permissible speed, any locomotive units, any locomotive unit defects, whether the train does or not contain high or wide loads. Any change above the information which occurs en route must be communicated with the train dispatcher and yard master at once. 412, Rule 412, high winds and severe weather. When a train other than unit trains handling bulk commodities experiences severe weather or high winds that suddenly reduce the train speed by 5 miles per hour or more, the train must stop and not proceed until the severe wind conditions have subsided. The train dispatcher, yard master, yard managers receive the notification of the higher wind conditions. She will contact the affected trains, avoiding maximum speed permitted with the affected area. Rule 413, applying brakes from the rear of the end of the train. Moving forward, brakes must not be applied with the rear of the train, except within the case of emergency. The stop signal cannot be given to the engineer by the radio or hand or lamp signal. Rule 412. Rule 414, overheating of the sliding wheels. Crew members must watch the trains closely and the signs overheating of the sliding wheels while the train is in motion, particularly while sliding on the low speed while the trainers. Should excessive overheating of the wheels occur with the retainers or used, the trainmen must turn the retainer valve handle on the subject car to the release position until the wheels have made sufficient time to cool. The trainmen must close the inspection of the wheels experienced so if a flat spots, tread builds up, and cracked flanges and plates, if defective wheels are found, the brake on such the car must be cut and the car must be set out for the first opportunity. All right, Rule 415. Sticking air brakes. Brakes can remain applied from any of the following causes. Automatic brake application, hand brake of the retainer valve, the excessive brake pipe leakage, overcharged brake system, braking rigging of the binds and files, defective control valve. Improper handling of the engineer with the automatic brake valve is such the attemption of the release of the train brake application before the brake pipe exhaust plate closed. The common cause of the sticking brakes, the cause of sticking brakes is from the improper handling of the automatic brake valve, usually an additional set of the release properly made, correctly conditioned, which found with the brakes and sticking on the car's engineer must be notified at once, and the air brake line and any other car can be released normally from the locomotive. The train must be stopped. The brake of the car must be cut unless other inspection reveals the brake was applied with the retainer valve being in another position other than exhaust of the handbrake was applied. Rule 416: cutting out car air brakes. To cut out the air brake, close the branch pipe cutout and drain all the air pressure for the reserve cylinder by using the release valve. Then the condition will permit it is safe to do so. The car may be handled with the next available rear point with a repair point. If the brakes are cut out, the following must be notified: engineer, the train dispatcher, control yardman, yard master, relieving crew, mechanical personnel must be informed of the car number involved with the overall end of the terminal. Control valves are articulated with the cars located on the platforms having the air reserve. The air auxiliary with the air reduction valve located on the platforms not having the air reserves. Note, the portion of the air brakes operation must nevertheless be less than 85% of all the brakes in the train. No more than two consecutive freight cars can be cut out in a train. The cutting of out more than two consecutive brakes may result in loss of emergency application reliability, result of the high train forces. The rear of the train must be having an operating air brake. The articulated cars will be considered having operating brakes when all control valves are cut. And when the control valve is cut out, the number of the operative brakes is reduced from one for each of the control valve that is cut out. If more than one control valve or one auxiliary air reduction valve is in series must be cut out, the articulated car must be set out. If necessary to cut out the brakes on a locomotive unit, the brake on any truck can be cut out by closing the cutout cock on the brake cylinder pipe leading to the truck, and that it will permit the brake on the other truck to continue to operate. Rule 417: set out bad car order. When necessary to set out the bad order car with the prompt, the report may made with the train dispatcher, yard manager, citing the nature of the defect, providing the following applicable For information, car initial number data flow with the given contents of the destination. Coupler damage to specify whether A or B is any of this involved. Wheel journal is involved, specifying the journal number, the size, the location, of the numeric system. Rule 418, regulating valve. The regulating valve is used to reduce the main reserve pressure to pressure of the desired brake pipe. The pressure should be determined with reading the equalizer reserve gauge with the automatic brake valve handle in the release position. Use the regulating valve to apply the release train brakes is prohibited. 419, equalizing reservoir leakage. In the event of the freight train has equalizing reserve leakage in the territory where the pressure maintaining the brake is being used, stop train, notify the supervisor, and await instructions. Rule 420, defective pressure maintaining feature. A locomotive unit having a defective pressure maintaining feature must not be used with the control unit with the training may remain in the locomotive consist. Rule 421, emergency application for the air brakes. Crew initiated. An emergency brake application must not be used to stop a train except for the life of the man property and life or property is in danger. When such an emergency depends on the shortest possible stop, move the automatic brake valve handle to the emergency position, pull the emergency brake valve handle, and leave it until the train has stopped. No attempt should be made to release the emergency brake application until the train has stopped. Response to an emergency air brake application. When the train brakes apply with the emergency brake with the cover of the locomotive brake cylinder pressure to be exhaustively actuating the independent brake valve to prevent harsh slacking action, excessive bust force, and or sliding wheels. No attempt shall be made to release the emergency brake application until the train stops. When the train stops on the grade with an independent brake valve might not hold the train must be secured with sufficient handbrakes before the air brakes are released and recharged. Choose the trainman and finding the brake in the train line and the proper securing the train with a sufficient handbrake for the emergency recover the pressure control switch. Place the automatic brake valve in the release position to allow the air brake pipe into the air into the air brake pipe. 2. After emergency air brake application, do not attempt to start the train until it is known that the brake pipe pressure has been restored to safe level. The brake is emergency rate with the train. Helper level, locomotive cut in the near rear of the helper of the engineer. Immediately cut the throttle and control level. The brake cylinder pressure prevent harsh slack action with sliding wheels. If the speed of the locomotive increases considerably immediately following the emergency brake application, it may be due to the train parting near the head end. Locomotive should be released by the depressing of the independent brake valve handle as long as the danger of the rear portion of the train colliding with the front portion. When the train is at an emergency brake application, the emergency must not move the train until the proper proceeding signal is received. When necessary to replace the knuckle or perform any work between the separated power portions of the train, angle cocks of both portions must be left open until the work is completed, but the train is to be recoupled. Handbrakes must be applied on both portions to the extent necessary to prevent movement of the running out of the slack where standing on the grade. Alright, Rule 422, brake malfunction. The air brake does not respond properly with the automatic brake valve. The emergency valve is used for the head end of the train. Place the train brakes emergency in the end of the train telemetry devices if equipped. When operating locomotive extreme case of emergency such as loss of main reserve air pressure brake equipment failure, loss of the dynamic brake, other failure with it prevents controlling locomotive and or train in the usual manner, any means of the stopping must be used. 423, brakes applied while stopped. When the safety permits the train stop at the main track with the sliding, must automatic brakes apply with the automatic brakes may remain applied when the train departs. 424, brake pipe continuity check. After stopping when ready to proceed, the train equipped with the functioning telemetry systems must check the pipe and community observe the change of the pressure on the head of the device. The function telemetry does not indicate the pressure change. The train must be inspected to ensure that the angle cocks are open and must know that the brakes apply with the reach from the rear of the car. If the brakes do not apply with the reach from the rear car, the cause may determine the condition corrected before the proceeding. Will conditions not permit the require the release of the brake pipe reduction, brake pipe pressure change of the function telemetry system is not required. Alright, 425, independent brake application. Independent brake must be cut in at all times to operate to avoid sliding the wheels, overheating all the wheels. The brake shoes harsh slack action. When stopped, independent brake valve must be fully applied. When moving the independent application must be controlled, dividing and sliding the wheels. Blocking the independent brake valve handle with the bail position is prohibited. While the dynamic brake is not effectively in very low speeds, the independent brake may be used to control the slack and train speed. No time the independent brake may be in no time may the independent brake be used to supplement the dynamic brake. Independent brake must be not used to control speeds over 10 miles an hour of the moving train. Rule 426, speed control during switching movements. When relying entirely on the locomotive brakes To control speed during the switching, the movement's consideration must be given into real condition, weight of the car's distance required of stopping, the number type of the locomotive's units. Care must not be to handle without the air brake system being the charged unless they know that they can handle it safely and can be stopped at the required distance. The locomotive brake may not be sufficient to control the movement. The crew must couple the brake hoses, open the angle cock insertion with the brakes operative with a sufficient number of cars, allow the engineer safely to control the movement at all times. This page is intentionally left blank. Chapter 5: Rules, Instructions for a proper train handling.